there's a rather large subject which I'm trying to not treat as being quite so large, and that is that our communication or our interactions, particularly with Hashem, they always have to have a component of a thank you and a please. The story about people who just relate their daily events to Hashem is sweet. I'm not sure if it's relevant to our relationship with Hashem. It's Tov Lahodos Lashem. There's an element of thank you, and there's an element of request. And that really binds our relationship because we are absolutely dependent on Hashem, and He is always addressing our needs. And so the core of the communication is a thank you and a please. And if you understand what a thank you and a please imply, you'll discover that no two people have the same thank you or the same please. Let me just give you a simple example. Don't expect that your relationship with your health is going to be the same as the relationship of someone who's in the ICU, Rahman al-Islam. Because for you, you might be called upon to use your health as a thank you. It's an oshir. Whereas the person in the ICU is using their health as a request. They are an oni. And there's also degrees, because not everybody is either in full vigor or in an ICU. So just using that as an example, you can see that I use the word oshir to refer to that which we're meant to be saying thank you for. And I use the word oni to refer to that which we are meant to request, to turn to Hashem with a request. So oshir is related to hoda'ah, and oni is related to bakasha. But there's never two people, and I would say even for within one person, there are never two times where a person is at the same place regarding his requests and his needs. So whether those are, let's say, spiritual needs, and a person is yearning for a spiritual connection, and in another aspect of his spiritual existence, he's an oshir. Baruch Hashem, he has good friends, he has supportive relationships, he has rebbeim who are guiding him, and so he's at the same time an oshir, for which he is meant to give hodah, and an oni, which he's making request. So the message is to turn our conversation, if you will, turn our relationship, our conversation with Hashem into something that speaks to us where we are. And you say, well, but we have all of these brachos where we're saying the same thing. But if you think about it, you're not saying the same bracha because the person who just went through a procedure to try to help his digestive system or his ability to clear away his waste is going to say the bracha of Asher Yotzar differently than the person who is Baruch Hashem eating and digesting just fine. And we're not meant to borrow somebody else's anius. Like, oh, well, I should consider myself like someone who is an ani in this matter. That wouldn't produce my own conversation with Hashem. Because today, as I experience myself in this moment, my Asher Yotzar is more of a hodah than it is a bakasha. We're not getting into the technicalities of whether it's a birchas hashevach. We're not getting into the technicalities of what sort of bracha it is. But I think that it doesn't take a lot of imagination to recognize that a person who's very hungry will say a bracha rishona, anticipating being able to eat something with much more of an anius, and having been so hungry, the thanks or the bracha achrona that he's going to say will contain much more hodah. And somebody who has plenty in the fridge, who's not really thinking about or really not experiencing deficiency or lack or hunger, is going to approach these differently. So we don't just stop and check in every once in a while to say what we have to say thank you about and what we have to ask about. It is a way for us to be having an ongoing interface where we align ourselves in a personal relationship with Hashem, using Ashirus and Anius as a way of connecting. So the Ashirus could be that I'm enjoying a beautiful sunrise. And I give Hodah for that because Hashem has granted me that Ashirus. The same thing can be true if a person feels love. So a person is experiencing a great wellspring of love towards another person. Well, that's a matnas elokim. That's called chen. And chen comes from the word chinam. So I got a freebie. Hashem put this person's chen in my heart. And I say, thank you to Hashem for giving me this warm feeling. Well, what if a person's walking around with a negative feeling and it's got some complaints, has negativity towards a fellow Jew, and he recognizes that's not the way Hashem wants him to carry on his business. He doesn't want him to feel negatively towards another Jew. Well, then he recognizes his anius. He recognizes that he needs to ask Hashem, please, please let the others have chen in my eyes, just as I ask that I should have chen in the eyes of others. But right now I happen to be feeling very loving, so that's an ashirus. And there's always, wherever you will look, you will find an element of ashirus and an element of anius, and no two people are the same, and no two moments in your own life are going to be identical. And that is what keeps the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu fresh. The dynamic is not a recurring, like, oh, I davened again. You didn't daven again. If you davened again, then all you were holding was your sitter. You weren't looking at your heart. If you're davening again, it means that you ignored the unique moment that you're standing in. There's a me, you, now. Where I am right now is this aspect of Ashirus and this aspect of Anius. So that when I'm approaching Hashem, who is the Kol Yochol, who has granted me whatever it is that is positive, he's granted me whatever Yirah Shamayim, or he's granted me whatever Torah, he's granted me whatever love that I have, he's granted me whatever attitudes are positive and are promoted in the world. He's granted me that. So that's an Ashirus. Do I ask for more? If you experience yourself as wanting more, then you will ask because that's your Anius. So I just wanted to make the point that when people try to relate to Hashem, they sometimes think that there's a formula. And the formula, you have to be very careful about a formula. A formula is that the Anshe Knesset Hagadola gave us all of the areas in which we can experience Ashirus and Anius. And they formulated that so that we would have guidelines and reminders that these are all areas in which there is both Ashirus and Anius. Even in the area of Geula, even in the area of our ultimate redemption, I can't tell you what an experience it was over Shabbos. One of the children brought a beautiful bottle of wine at a get-together, and it was wonderful. And it was all from Eretz Yisrael. And all I could think about was how Eretz Yisrael was so barren. You look at the writings of Mark Twain, but anybody who visited in that Tkufa talked about how barren Eretz Yisrael was, utterly and absolutely barren. And today, I drink a cup of wine, I look at the label, 3 different wines are blended here. There's a Merlot, and there's a Cabernet, and like, what? He said, yeah, but we're yearning for more Geula. Of course we are. Of course we are. And in that aspect, there's a profound Anius. But to not acknowledge the Ashirus is to ignore that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved in this redemptive process. So in every aspect, whatever you look at, you're enjoying that cup of wine, and it was wonderful. I just, Inli Milim, it was wonderful. But all from Eretz Yisrael. 3 different types of wine, all coming from the Golan and the Galil, which was utterly and absolutely barren, and today produces such lush produce that they're able to put 3 wines and make a wonderful product. Again, the message is that Bori Priya Gofen, or that Ala Gofen that you're going to say after drinking that, is going to reflect where you are at this moment. You just had something that brought out your Ashirus, and of course it reminds you that we have not yet been brought to the state of, and if you're able to do both, Anius and Ashirus, great. And if you only have one, because right now you're just filled with your gratitude, then go with that. Then that becomes your conversation. Then the conversation becomes focused entirely on the Ashirus. There'll be another time when you will sit and contemplate just how far we are from the Geula, and we'll turn to Hashem and request it. That'll be that moment's conversation. But it doesn't mean that we need to have a formula where we're always pointing to the same Ashirus and to the same Anius. Let's get personal. And the more personal we get, the more the relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu becomes tangible and applicable, and we can build on it and use it in our day-to-day lives.